This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
The final score, Wrexham 0, Borehamwood 1. Wrexham lose that unbeaten home record which has stood since the opening day of the season. Their unbeaten run ends as the fourth longest in our history. And, well, that was one to mull over. Two things to consider, really. I won't pull my punches about the referee. There is no question it was a diabolical refereeing performance, and it had a massive influence on the game. But having said that, Wrexham did not perform well, so there's no point in trying to hide behind the fact that the referee had such a big influence on the match. Because Wrexham really struggled against the Borehamwood side, who are very difficult to play against, no two ways about that, and were hard opposition. But they've emerged with a huge 3 points on a day when everybody has been losing, Wrexham included. Wrexham made changes. Jonathan Franks came in on the flank, Paul Rutherford making way, and Scott Bowden starting up front, Nicky Devidix making way. So an attacking looking side with two strikers in Bowden and Quigley, and then also Holroyd and Franks on the flanks. But it didn't work out early on. Borehamwood are a long ball side. They put the pressure on. Wrexham were unable to really stop them from effectively doing that, and Wrexham found themselves penned in and struggling to get the ball down on the floor and actually move the ball forwards into Borehamwood territory. And Borehamwood's pressure was rewarded in the 9th minute in highly controversial circumstances. Ball played in towards the far post. It was nice build-up play by Borehamwood. Shakes feeding it down the right channel. A ball swung beyond the far post. Ben Woodard's left wing back headed it back into the 6-yard box. Bruno Andrade taking it on the chest. Manny Smith was touch tight behind him. Andrade went down. Penalty. Got to be honest, in first seeing it, my first impression of it was that it was an embarrassing attempt to win a penalty. So you can imagine I was a little bit startled when the referee pointed towards the spot, but he did. I'm willing to be proven wrong if I look at the replays again, but it looked a highly dubious decision, and the first major one from Paul Marsden. I assure you he'd make a lot more major ones before the day was out. Andrade stepped up and sent Dunn the wrong way to give Borehamwood the lead, and the pattern really was established then for much of the first half. Borehamwood pressing, knocking the ball long, the extra man in midfield, which seemed to be of benefit to them. They were bursting forwards. Kieran Murtagh was particularly impressive in midfield, getting forward to support the strikers. Wrexham completely struggling to get the ball down and try and pass their way out, and they tried to knock it long. They certainly weren't finding teammates, and I felt rather sorry for Scott Bowden, if I'm honest, because he worked very hard at it and had nice little moments. The problem was he was only getting something to really compete for about every 10 minutes. So Holroyd worked hard and Quigley worked hard, but Wrexham were really struggling to get anywhere, really, and were penned in. Borehamwood weren't creating that much, but then long ball teams often don't. It's more about your real estate, really, and where you can camp yourself. It was the 29th minute before they did anything else of any note, really. Andrade swinging in a corner to the near post, and maybe the centre-back champion should have made it 2-0. He arrived unmarked 6 yards out and flashed his header across the face of goal when he ought to have hit the target. Wrexham with a lucky let-off. Soon afterwards, Murtagh bursting towards the edgy area, squaring it, Shakes pulling his shot from the edgy area and putting it wide. In the last 5 minutes of the half, Wrexham started to get things going, started to get the ball down on the floor, started to move it around a bit more efficiently, and had their best 5 minutes of the match. Holroyd on the left-hand side doing superbly to wriggle and beat two men, get into the box, drove across into the near post. Another big decision for the referee to make as champion went to ground. It looked like the ball hit his hand, which was supporting his body weight. The referee not interested in the penalty shout. Then Turley with the poor clearance. Kevin Roberts swinging in across to the far post. Quigley weakly heading it wide at the far post, to be fair to him, unsighted by the crowd of players in front of him. And in added time, Wrexham again pushing on. Kelly swinging a free kick into the box. It was half cleared. A decent half chance for Quigley 15 yards out, but he struggled to get his body around in time, and he hit his shot well over. Borehamwood also had an opportunity late on in the half. Andrade breaking down the right-hand side, pulling it back for Shakes, whose shot was well blocked by Kevin Roberts. Throughout the half, the referee getting grief, not only for that penalty decision and his failure to give the Wrexham penalty shout as well, but just it was an odd performance by him. He was spraying yellow cards around left, right and centre, mostly to Wrexham players. dissent mostly. Wedgbury got the first one. And it was a strange one, and the referee and the linesman between them, I think, got two pretty clear decisions the wrong way round. Firstly, a foul to Wrexham, and then when the ball came out, Wedgbury made a good tackle, and it seemed to ricochet off the Borehamwood man for a throw-in to Wrexham. Wedgbury, angry, ran down the line, shaking his fist at the linesman. You can't do that, and so, understandably, the referee gave a yellow card for dissent. Pearson then picked up a yellow, and Pearson, of course, we know, will always be in the referee's ear and trying to put pressure on him. Usually he's pretty good at judging the line, but obviously wasn't in this case, so he got a booking for dissent. The third one for Jennings, I'd love to know what really happened in it. It was a set piece, Wrexham put it in the box. The whistle went as it dropped to Jennings on the edge of the area. He hit a shot in regardless. I don't know, did he book the Jennings for taking a shot after the whistle had gone? In which case, frankly, that was farcical. I mean, the whole point of booking a player for shooting when the whistle's gone is that they're wasting time. He certainly wasn't wasting time. Wrexham were losing at that point. I don't know if Jennings actually said something as he went past him which inspired the referee to book him. But that was an odd one. But the crowd really were angry, and Wrexham players were angry at the referee. And as when Wrexham went off at half time, you wondered whether they'd just be able to refocus and reform and get their game plan going. Well, if they did, it was hard to judge. Borehamwood started putting pressure on Wrexham, and 2 minutes after the restart, Wrexham were down to 10 men. Kevin Albert's getting a controversial red card. Now then, I'm not sure why. Okay. So I've got to be I'm going to be wary in what I say here. The ball was played down the flank and Andrade seemed to foul Roberts. Wrexham weren't happy with the challenge. Roberts particularly. He was complaining vehemently about Andrade. They were walking together. Didn't seem to be a great deal going on, and Andrade grabbed Roberts' shirt. And Wrexham seemed to be protesting, wanting Andrade to be into trouble. For my judgment, it happened right down in front of us. The bench was up, and the referee came across and gave Roberts a red card. Now, just before I started broadcasting this, a fan from the crowd behind me was telling me that they thought that Roberts, how can I put this in a delicate manner, had done to Andrade what Vinnie Jones did to Paul Gascoigne. Got a bit of a grip in an area that maybe you shouldn't on a gentleman. I don't know if that's the case. We may have to see if the video shows us anything further. But after consultation with the fourth official, the referee pulled out the red card to the astonishment of everybody, and Wrexham were down to 10 men and struggled massively from that point onwards, in all honesty. Wrexham tried to be bold. Scott Bowden was unlucky. He was withdrawn straight away so David Raven could come in at right back, but Holroyd and Franks continued to try and support Quigley up front. But in all honesty, Wrexham really weren't getting the ball down. Borehamwood were camped in Wrexham's half without actually creating too many chances, although Andrade did have a shot from 25 yards on the left flank, which he flicked over the wall. Good parry by Dunn. Wrexham were getting massively frustrated, so was the crowd, by the Borehamwood's time wasting and by the referee's refusal to act on it. It was really pretty astonishing that he didn't give any cards for time wasting against Borehamwood. I've got to say here as well, look, I don't find Borehamwood pretty, don't get me wrong, but I don't blame them at all. I think if you come across a weak referee who is I think starting to guess a little bit as he's making decisions, then you're going to look to take advantage of it, quite frankly, and that was what Borehamwood were doing. Wrexham toiled to get things going. Quarter of an hour from the end, they just started to show a little bit of threat. By this point, McCrath had been brought on as well for Quigley, and Ainge was pushed straight through the middle up front, and Wrexham just had a little burst of pressure. Quigley breaking through the centre, driving a 20-yarder, which was deflected just wide of the left post. The corner was swept in. Pearson went up and was vehement that he'd been fouled in the air. Referee wasn't interested in the penalty. As the protests went on, Kelly picked the ball up and hit a whistling 25-yard shot, which went wide of the right post. Then McCrath swinging the ball in beyond the far post, a really nasty cross. Ainge challenging for it, won another corner. When that was swept into the far post, there was a crowded players, a bit of a scramble, and Smith within the 6-yard box hit a shot, but it hit a body on the floor and ricocheted away to safety. Then 6 minutes left, another controversial moment. Raven, very clever work and good movement by McCrath. Raven picking the winger out. He cut inside into the box. Was he fouled from behind? He certainly got goal side of his man, hit the deck. referee wasn't interested. He certainly wasn't for evening things out. Down the other end, another bad decision by the referee. 4 minutes left now. Great break by Ferrier, cutting in from the left-hand side. Wedgbury, who was one of those players who'd been booked in the first half, sliding in, nowhere near the ball, took his legs from under him. A clear second yellow card. The referee, having sent one Wrexham player off and having had loads of abuse throughout the match, decided to ignore that one and just give the free kick. Murta stepped up and floated the free kick just over the bar. Wrexham nearly conceding then on the breakaway as they really threw caution to the wind. A misheader by Raven, leaving them open. Ferrier bursting down the left channel until Pearson came back with a brilliant tackle as Ferrier was looking to pull the trigger. And Wrexham did start to make crazy gambles. There was one point where Raven stayed back and both centre-backs in open play went charging up the pitch to lend their height. The attack, Jennings was playing in a sort of half and half wing / full-back position anyway for the last 10 minutes. Wrexham really trying to tear on. There were 6 minutes of added time. In the 3rd minute of those, Kelly swung in a good corner. Pearson rising 6 yards up, just couldn't get on top of his header and planted this over the bar. And then in the final of the 6 added minutes, a corner which came to nothing. Jennings picked it up and swung it in. For my money, it was a penalty. Smith jumping for the ball, arm around his neck as he leapt, couldn't get up to it. It looked like a foul to me. It carried over into the box. There was a huge scramble. Holroyd 6 yards out of the shot blocked. It spanned back out, and Pearson 15 yards out, leaning backwards, spooned it over the bar. Real frustration for Wrexham. You really can't express it enough. The referee has got to have a good long look at himself after a performance in which he was erratic, to say the least. But we've also got to say that Borehamwood, on a very wet pitch, the game was only went ahead after 3 inspections this morning, and the pitch deteriorated in the second half because a hell of a lot of liquid's gone onto it, and it poured down throughout the match. It's still pouring down now. Wrexham didn't perform. It's got to be said. Borehamwood imposed their game plan on them from the start. Wrexham's midfield, much too deep and outnumbered, just didn't get the ball forwards and was incapable of being able to control the possession anywhere near the Borehamwood half. That 5-minute spell at the end of the first half was the only time Wrexham really managed to get the ball down and pass it about and impose their style of play on Borehamwood. And so that was a real problem for Wrexham, in all honesty. They brought Ainge on, but he didn't make any real impact when Wrexham were knocking long balls forwards, and it was a tricky one for us to really to get to hold in. Once Wrexham went down to 10 men, obviously it went even more difficult. But it was an unhappy day at the office. The referee certainly had a massive influence on it, and you do wonder, if you hadn't given that early penalty, whether things might have panned out a bit differently. You also obviously wonder whether he hadn't given the red card, then it might have panned out differently. But the fact of the matter is that Wrexham also struggled, failed to perform, and on a huge day, you suspect, at the top end of the National League. It was Borehamwood who emerged with the spoils. The final score of Wrexham 0, Borehamwood 1. I'm Mark Griffiths.
This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.